Bonjour, everyone. Welcome back to the Unqualified Film Bros podcast. We're going French more than the Napoleon movie did, and that's not an understatement. We're talking
Accurate,
about Ridley
honestly.
Scott's Napoleon, and Declan's already interrupting, so we're off to a great start. Gentlemen, Ridley Scott, this is the second time we've talked about a Ridley Scott movie on the pod. Our first one was The Last Duel, which was like our third. Oh, no, we talked about Blade Runner. Excuse me.
Oh
So,
yeah,
yeah.
Excuse me. Excuse me, Ben. This is the second time we talked about a Ridley Scott new release on the
There
pod
you go.
Mhm.
Fair enough.
after The Last Duel, which was like one of our first 3 or 4 episodes.
Mm.
Yeah,
So now
It's
we're
their
at like,
I
episode two
also
or
did a
three.
mini-sode on House of Gucci.
that's true.
that's right.
I
Yeah.
forgot House of Gucci was Ridley Scott.
I know, right? It's like,
Yeah.
wait, oh yeah, he made like they came out close to another. Like what?
Damn.
Makes a lot of films sometimes, and then other times he doesn't. I don't know.
Mhm.
Still anyway,
Those are-
as I try to hold off a sneeze for the next 40 minutes.
Bless you.
Thank you in advance.
Oh man.
It's coming.
You
Um,
look like one of the aristocrats in the movie.
I'm very French.
I did not.
You think you're so great because you have boats?
All-time
Such-
line right there.
Really was.
So let's
honestly.
dive
Up there
on
with
in.
Father, Son, and House of Gucci.
Let's dive on in. Napoleon. What'd you guys think?
So it's interesting because unlike I said this in Letterboxd, but I'm gonna reiterate it because it sums up my opinions well. Unlike with like something like The Last Duel, where I think people who dislike it are actively wrong, I actually understand it if someone didn't connect with this movie because it's a very strange way to do a biopic of Napoleon. That being said, I still like the movie and enjoyed it in a surprise to exactly no one, especially no one here except
I mean,
George, obviously.
look, anyone that has watched any of Ridley Scott's other historical movies should know by now that he doesn't do biopics. He just inserts the history into his like whatever he wanted to say. He's a lot about the relationships, and in this one, like it's appropriate. I think his first movie was The Duelist, which is all about the a relationship between these two French people in Napoleon's army, and then even after that, one of them is a Napoleon loyalist, like we see in the end of the movie, and the other is not. But their relationship is basically that they hate each other and just duel at every sighting. And in this one, it revolves a lot about Josephine. It's like when Josephine dies, the movie's over, you know. Like they could have done a little bit more. I guess he said you could have had a 4 hour cut or whatever.
There
I
is
think
a
he is
4 hour cut.
releasing a 4 hour
It is,
cut,
It's
which
going direct to
I will
streaming.
of course see day one. Like
yeah, I'm gonna see
That's a
that.
mistake.
I'm
yeah.
Ugh.
But
Ben,
yeah,
have you seen Kingdom of Heaven?
kind of yes.
Yeah, no, I just that's
And
that's Ridley Scott's most famous. Most people consider it to be the greatest director's cut of all time because of how much the director's cut improves the movie.
Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Yeah, true. That
That
is.
might be more of a product of the theatrical version being so bad.
yeah,
I'm still desperate to see the J.J. Abrams cut of Rise of Skywalker because it wouldn't be at a
Hell
breakneck
yes,
pace.
hell yes, I'd love to see
And,
that. Oh my gosh.
yeah, Napoleon. I'll go next here with some opening thoughts.
Mhm.
Battle sequences are great
Mhm.
because that's what Ridley Scott does best, is large scale epic historical battles. And
I
everything else, the dialogue, the performances. Vanessa Kirby is very good. Joaquin Phoenix is entirely phoning it in the entire time. And the dialogue, as we said, with "you think you're so great because you have boats," real line from the movie, I mean, it's 5-star battles except Waterloo, which should have been done better.
I heavily disagree with
And
that. I feel like the
everything else is
dialogue.
like it's a 2-star movie other than the battles.
That, all right, I heavily disagree. That's a terrible opinion, George. Sorry, but that's an awful opinion.
Sorry.
Like I can understand you not liking it because it's not, structured in the way that a biopic normally is. Like, I bet you like The Imitation Game, even though it's a terrible movie.
Imitation Game was a very good movie. Better than this, by far.
That is an awful opinion.
The
It
fuck out of
completely,
here.
it completely destroys the entire idea of Alan Turing. This movie takes like Alan Turing, and this is an important distinction. I hate biopics typically. Alan Turing is, people know his name, they know the Turing test, whatever, and this is important. It completely destroys any idea of who Alan Turing actually was. Everyone knows who Napoleon was. Everyone knows his conquests. So to take a very like emotional, personal story, and given that they use the letters as a backdrop, I think it's very appropriate that he was this corny, that he actually was this cringe. So you say bad writing, but it's probably pretty accurate to the insanity that Napoleon was. So I very disagree with that. And I'll have Imitation Game, it's structured as a good movie, destroys and utterly obliterates any of the subject matter that it tried to emulate. It is unbelievably bad in terms of accuracy, way worse than even Napoleon.
Damn, I didn't know that about an Imitation Game. But no, I'll just quickly say, I feel like the thing about the film that surprised me and is why I sort of understand if someone didn't connect with it is I feel like they were intentionally like undercutting or sort of making fun of Napoleon the entire way.
Absolutely, that's why the French people hated it.
Yeah. Like I actually like once I saw it, I'm like, oh, okay, you know what? I kind of get what the French
I don't
were
really
talking
understand
about.
like the criticism because many people have talked about like historically Napoleon's outrages and his like absurd temper, or just immaturity. The Napoleon complex. A lot of people relate it to his stature, but he really wasn't that short. It was more about the fact that he was very insecure about a lot of things. And I think this does a great job. And it's very funny. I mean, I think it's intentionally funny. To the level that these people literally had to, follow this guy that was like a little baby with a genius tactician's. It's very actually accurate for most rulers.
I did genuinely laugh at the scene where it's like, did anyone keep lists of the officers we killed? No. And he just like walks over and just like randomly picks up a sword to bring to Josephine. It's like that made me laugh.
It really is in the like little moments like that I think this movie shines. I have it listed at 4 stars, but I may raise it if after a few watches. I really enjoyed
You're gonna watch this more than twice?
Yes, because I don't watch the MCU movies 10 times over. I have a lot of room in my watch list.
Hey, I barely watch the MCU anymore, so check yourself.
No, you just watch the old films again and again.
I do wonder. I feel like the things I've heard about what I will just say, like just to reiterate on a point you said earlier, like George, that you felt Waterloo was too short, which I don't disagree with. I've heard that might be an area that's expanded in the director's cut or something like that.
Look, I'm sure
an hour and a half long battle scene.
And you know what? For a movie about Napoleon, that's worth it.
That would be worth it, honestly.
I think just like Oppenheimer, this is a movie. I mean, Oppenheimer is much more of like an epic. This is much more of like almost a comedy. A lot of times it reminded me of Amadeus.
That's not a bad comparison.
It takes and also it's very good comparison for the subject matter. Napoleon,
Mhm.
genius tactician, immature, a baby. Mozart also famous for being an absolute baby, but he was an absolute genius with music. But both of them have this like sort of dramedy aspect where it's not like, blockbuster dramedy. It's very much you have the drama undercut with a lot of the comedy that's just innate to the subject matter. And I honestly think that it does a good job. I can completely understand why people wouldn't like this movie. It is a bizarre sort of thing.
I like if you made a film like this about like Winston Churchill or George Washington, I imagine that British critics or American critics might feel
100%. And
You'd
similar.
never make this movie about George Washington, though.
That's why I love this, is because I find like so many biopics, historical pics, they're epics, is the way that they're written a lot of times. But really, it's not historically accurate. Like these people are absolute fucks most of the time. They jack off, they have sex with a bunch of people, and then they go to war. Like
That's the life, ain't it, boys?
I want to I want to just clip that out of context and just use it in like every single conversation.
Please, Declan, you're more than welcome to clip anything you want from the episode if you have the video editing skills.
Thank you, George.
Except for anything with my face in it.
Yeah, Max doesn't consent to that. Speaking of Max, Max, what do you think of the movie?
Yeah. So share your views. You've been quiet.
Yeah, thanks. In short, it's not really my cup of tea either, but hearing kind of what you guys are saying about like the goofiness just kind of being part of it and having to suspend your disbelief a little bit if you're going in thinking that this is going to be like a more traditional biopic, then yeah, I get that makes sense. It just is like this dude says some goofy stuff.
Yeah, I think
really
Max and I talked about it after he saw the movie yesterday. Where we come down on this, we basically agreed, was that it wasn't exactly the movie we were expecting, and I think that was a little jarring for the viewing experience.
That's fair.
He's a goofy dude,
the
man.
second time he's done it. All right, Ridley Scott. I just don't think he gives an absolute fuck anymore. He makes his movies. He completely knows what vision he's going for, and he sold it twice. The Gladiator experience. First with The Last Duel, where he does a Rashomon of
Ben, careful you don't say anything bad about that movie.
I love that movie. What?
Just be careful you don't say anything bad, because
the only one in danger of saying anything bad.
He sold both of these films, and not by his own. Like he probably doesn't give a fuck how these movies are marketed. He's just like, oh shit, I get to make this movie. That's great. And yeah, the marketing department, just like apparently Wonka is a musical, they have just absolutely failed multiple movies now, because you gotta sell it for what it is. You can't sell this as an epic, like historical tale. You have to sell it as a comedy. Like that's what it's to be.
I think if they had somehow made it clearer that this was sort of like funny, like, or at the very least like comedic, or not comedic even, that may be too strong, but it's not like the most serious like definitive Napoleon movie ever made. I think that like if the tone was more conveyed in the marketing, the film would
at the same time though, I find it a little funny, just to imagine a bunch of people going in like, oh shit, we're gonna see a movie about Napoleon as epic, back when you see this movie. It's I mean, just like I knew going in, because I had seen some like preliminary thoughts, not reviews, but
this Ben has insider access, by the way. He got his SAG card last year.
Yeah, I went on Twitter and some people said some things.
You and Joaquin are texting daily about this, right?
I am. I do love Joaquin. You said he's phoning it in. I really don't think so. I feel like he
I
gives a very good performance.
phoning it in might be an exaggeration. He just in a lot of the movie, and maybe it was just the way he was playing the character of Napoleon, he almost feels disinterested. And maybe it's just an aloof element of who Napoleon was.
But that makes a lot of sense. This is a guy that doesn't fit in anywhere except for battle.
Was
Like
Napoleon on the spectrum?
honestly, most likely,
I don't
given
think
that he was very, very smart in terms of like tactician.
Like you kind of get that sense.
Yeah, but he was
what
I'm
I'll
not
say is
qualified to make that claim one way or another.
if
Venice.
he was also very
Probably.
charismatic. So it's like, so it's like kind of, yeah.
But no, I think he's actually pretty good for like who he probably was. Most of these people that are geniuses like this have absolutely no social sense. Have you seen Elon Musk? Like, not to say that he's on the same like tactician level,
That's
but
not a terrible
If
comp,
he's
though.
even a genius.
That's not a terrible comp. I'm going
I
with
mean,
Ben here.
like he's smart at some things and an absolute buffoon at others. Like, he cannot relate to anybody. It's something, and he is actually on the spectrum. We know that for sure. So,
Guys, would Napoleon have been just absolutely batshit insane on Twitter?
Yes.
yeah, 100%.
That's an
But he didn't have Twitter, so he had to go out and beat a bunch of people. But you kind
Problem
of
is he would also use
like
Twitter effectively to keep support for him in the wartime. Like he'd be simultaneously insane but also have a massive following. That's what I'd say.
I do like the consistency of his character. I feel like in a traditional biopic, they'd be like, "Oh, Napoleon was this great leader," and then all of a sudden he went insane. You know, I love that they sort of keep that he was always this person. I mean, the whole reason is his like pride for going into Russia is like, well, I can't lose. That's not. I don't do that.
Yeah.
And then he gets exiled.
So,
So
yeah, I thought the handling of his exiles, because I loosely remember the history from freshman year of high school 12 years ago. And, I remember he got exiled twice. I remember he escaped, went back, Waterloo, and then got exiled again. And I feel like the way that they go about, particularly his escape with the commandeering of the boat and then getting back to France and sort of persuading the military to sort of go along and fall in line behind him, like that is quintessential Napoleon to me. And then to go into Waterloo and basically use all of his options to try to find some way to win against the British, and then the Prussians show up and he's like, I'm out. And then they send him out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and the movie ends, and not once did they mention the Louisiana Purchase. And the only reason why I would show up for a director's cut of this movie is if Declan watches it and verifies for me that the Louisiana Purchase is a solid 15 minutes of the movie.
I will
That's all I ask.
I will 100% report to you on that.
Thank you.
Napoleon was not care about America. He's like, what is that? An island over there? I've been exiled.
But it's not an island.
Like a big island. They call them continents, but they're technically
Yeah, technically everything's an island, nothing's the mainland. We get it. I had the same thought.
Wow. That's pretty enlightened there.
What were your favorite scenes of the movie?
Lamb chop.
I go to a theater where you could press a button and they come to your seat and they ask you, what do you want? So I pressed that button and I asked for something, and there was a woman there that came and she was having trouble finding something. And while she was doing that, I had to sit through the scene where Josephine pops up her dress and he's like, go down there. You'll find a surprise." She was sitting like right next to me. I was like, "This is terrible." So a very memorable scene was that for me.
Yeah.
Aside from that, it was just kind of like a wild scene. A lot of those sex scenes were
Yeah,
ridiculous.
any of the sex scenes are so memorable because
Yeah.
Joaquin Phoenix always does some weird shit during one of them.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
Again, it
Did we
was
see his facial expressions?
Yeah.
once
He
the
was
first sex
mad. He was
scene where it
angry.
was like
Yeah, he
so
was beating his
so-
meat quite literally.
yeah. Like that's when I realized, oh, this film is supposed to be funny, sort of when like the first sex scene happens and it's like over in like 5 seconds.
Oh,
And it's
that's a credit
Josephine, every
to
time it's just going,
yeah, it's like
but
it's just
Declan,
it's so bizarre.
that's a credit to the director and editor that you could make something like that funny, even though it's kind of, I wouldn't say grotesque, but very
Mm,
explicit without being showy.
yeah.
You
also
can do
very,
something like
very
a smash cut to a scene where they're doing that,
Smash cut.
and it's funny.
Mm.
So I'm curious, I know Declan has seen Amadeus. Have you two seen
No.
Amadeus?
I was gonna watch it last night, and then I realized that it's a 3-hour movie, and
Um,
it was
well, you
really
should watch
late.
it. Honestly, a lot of comedy
Like
is very
I saw a comp to it, and that's what got me thinking about it, because I watched Napoleon, and then I was reading about it, and I saw Amadeus as a comp to it. So I'm glad you brought it
oh,
up, Ben.
yes,
And
I'm not the only one. Yeah,
yeah,
it's you will see it. It's a very clear influence, I guess. I don't know
Yeah.
who did that movie, but
It was no, I can't remember it either.
I
But
got it.
I know F. Murray Abraham was Salieri. That's like that's the guy everyone remembers, ironically, from Amadeus.
I'm glad
Nicholas Forman.
Salieri has a greater
Thank you.
in death, like hundreds of years later, than he ever did in life, just because of that movie.
Yeah. Though some people say it's like, oh, his music's actually pretty good. Like it actually is good. It's like
It's just because Mozart was like,
Mozart's movie or music is very good. I don't think that's controversial to say.
I'll also quickly say, I think for my favorite scene, I think it was, I want to say it was was it Borodiro or was it Austerlitz? I forget which scene it was, but the one that was like on the lake where it's like where the
That battle
Russians...
was so goddamn captivating.
Yeah, he shoots the cannonballs through the frozen.
Yeah, and it's like and it's like
Uh,
and it's like that was great.
The one thing that I really got out of this movie, and if nothing else, it's probably part of his point, is that this guy, just through his sheer like tactician brain, managed to take over like half the world, and yet he had the maturity of a 10-year-old. Like, that's amazing, isn't it?
It is.
I mean,
Never give up on your dreams. You can rule the world.
the most powerful country in the world has elected its fair share of
That's true.
shall we say, emotionally immature individuals.
I'll be honest, that is like less impressive to me. Napoleon actually like it literally fought his way there, through battles. It's like you can just go up there and say whatever you want. They do that all the time, but
And I'm glad that they
back it up.
I'm glad that they showed his rise to not even political power, but just governmental power. His rise to being Emperor of France through military might and tactical strength, rather than, oh, we're going to meet with the Directory and we're going to decide that Napoleon should have more power, and we're going to do it in politics and dialogue and meetings. And no,
and then
Napoleon's story is one that you show, don't tell. Show, don't tell.
Yeah.
I love democracy. I want to use these emergency powers only briefly so that we can get rid of these separatist British forces.
Declan, I'm going to say this once. Misa
Okay.
think Yusa should not make that reference about Napoleon. Enough.
I think this podcast needs to be reorganized into the first no.
Into the first Declanic Empire.
Empire. Yeah, yes.
Jesus Christ.
For a new
The Deck Slar.
Tsar Declan the First.
God.
And I like that they mentioned a bit of the Caesar stuff, but they don't
The
really
Caesar comp was there, yeah.
they don't go overboard because everyone knows that Napoleon really wanted to be Julius Caesar. Minus
Yeah.
no death.
I wonder if that'll be more of a thing in the director's cut.
Right. I don't think that was his focus. I think it's
Yeah.
I like you can go for a lot of things. If you study somebody like Napoleon or Caesar, there's a million different movies you can make. I like that he made one that is not often made. Like I dislike biopics because I find them they transform the material into an epic and usually don't do a very, very good job with the material telling the story. This doesn't really bastardize anything. I know some people say, well, this is historically inaccurate, but doesn't bastardize anything of the actual history to the
And
extent that I've seen.
sometimes when you're making a movie, you gotta sacrifice for the sake of drama. You actually have to make it a story. Otherwise, it's just a documentary.
Pretty sure
Ridley
Ridley
Scott
said that in interviews, but he was like, "Fuck you," while saying it.
But there's also not really much point to a movie like The Imitation Game that has bastardized the story of Alan Turing so much that his coworkers have to tell everyone, "Hey, he wasn't actually that autistic. Like he didn't talk like that. Nobody knows. No, everyone thinks that this is Alan Turing. This guy died like 50 years ago. Like let's pay a little more respect to the recent history and the people that are less well known than like Napoleon. Everyone knows his story, and there's going to be a million different stories. You know, I care for historical accuracy, but also make a good movie. Find a nice in between there, and I think that Ridley Scott, well, this is not his finest movie. I think it's a very well done movie, and I enjoyed it. Very funny.
Yeah, I think, this movie covers a lot of ground. 30 years roughly between 1789 and 1821, I think, was when Napoleon died.
Yeah.
And, we see most of the major events in his adult life. But, we're still hitting the major moments. We're still getting some semblance of a narrative, obviously told through the lens of his relationship with Josephine. We haven't really even talked about that much other than the sex scenes. And I think choosing to tell Napoleon's story through that lens rather than just a straight up biopic, making it about the relationship, was the smart choice, was the correct decision. It made the film and made the character of Napoleon more accessible, I'd say. It's certainly something that
personal. Conquering a world is not something a lot of people can sympathize with. But being in love, especially, complications of romance, not that anyone has that relationship.
It's not like Ridley Scott. It's not like Ridley Scott made a Hitler movie and made the focus his relationship with Ava. And now that I've said that, it's in the ether. Someone's gonna make that movie.
It's gonna be 20 years. Ridley Scott's gonna be like 100 years old, and it's gonna be like, all right, I got one more in me, and that's the movie's gonna make. With a bang.
No, God. In 20 years, Ridley Scott takes over from Denis Villeneuve and makes Blade Runner 2079.
Holy shit. Hell yeah.
1945.
Recast Jared Leto, but then
that's one of the funniest things you've ever said. 1945.
Christ. Come on, guys.
So let's talk about Vanessa Kirby.
Oh yeah.
Because she is tremendous here.
Honestly.
And
sorry.
I was just going to say that the original casting, because this movie was announced right after, you know, as The Last Duel was ramping up for release, Ridley Scott was like, Napoleon's going to be the next movie
Oh,
that I make.
he wanted Jodie Comer, I think.
Wanted Jodie Comer to
Oh,
play Josephine, and she was cast in the role. She was attached to the movie, and
wow.
then she had to leave. Vanessa Kirby was cast in the role. I wonder if something like that's going to happen for Fantastic Four because those two are being considered for Sue Storm. Just saying.
Oh my god. Okay, that would be
But,
that would be so specific that it's like
I don't
that
think it's a casting crew, but who
but anyway,
knows?
Vanessa Kirby gives an outstanding turn here. I really,
Mm,
really like what we get from her. I think she makes Josephine into both a strong character and, a sympathetic one as well, where we see how her relationship with Napoleon impacts her on top of how the relationship impacts him. And we sort of get both sides. What do you guys think?
mhm. Yeah, no, I was gonna say that, like, I know Vanessa Kirby. I think mainly everyone, mainly from The Crown. The first couple seasons
I
where
know her mostly from Mission Impossible.
right, yeah, yeah. No,
All
fair
right, Ben
enough,
needs
fair
me to reference franchise movies like every 5 minutes. You should know that by now.
Yeah.
I just assume you do when I'm not listening to. No, I'm kidding. No, but anyway, so I know her from The Crown. She's great in The Crown. I do feel like it's she gives a very, like, there's a lot of stuff going on in Josephine's mind all throughout the film, and I feel like she really, like, yeah, she brings it for the performance here. It's like able to convey a whole lot about this person with what she does. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, she does a great job.
Like she's very good. And yeah, I mean, we were talking about the sex scenes. She is in a fair amount of sex scenes. Pretty much every time they come into contact, Napoleon wants to have sex with her, including that one time where she's like, I just had my hair done. And Napoleon starts going, "Mama, mama, 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 mama."
Like, I was like, I can't believe that's a thing that happened.
Napoleon is just a redditor. He's just an old school redditor that happened to, be an emperor.
He is. Oh my god.
Just a demented little goon. Um, yeah, I think she plays off of him really well to that sense of she kind of needs him and wants him in the same way that he also needs him. It's like a, what do you call it, mutually like a beneficial relationship.
Symbiotic.
Yeah, symbiotic. Yeah, parasite.
Mhm.
Parasite's a different movie.
No, but like they're like parasites to each other, but they also need what the other has.
Mutually
Yeah.
parasitic. Okay.
Yeah, mutually parasitic.
Mhm. It's not
In
always perfect, but they do love each other.
some ways, I'll make another movie reference to those who have seen it. Phantom Thread is kind of like a demented, sick relationship between the two main characters in that film. It reminds me similarly of this one. Like they were in love, but not in the way that most people would be.
Yeah.
They screw each
Yeah.
other over. Um, they have, affairs, and even when they're divorced, they're still sort of in love with each other.
Mhm.
But I think she does a great job, especially, like throughout all the different trauma and everything. There's lots of like wild moments where he just like slaps her during the divorce. Just like read the damn thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Such a, like, it's such a, again, it's a strange moment, him needing her to say, in order for the divorce to happen, her, like, saying all these things that aren't even true about their relationship. It's I don't know, it's fascinating.
But that's part of the Napoleon complex, you know. He was so insecure about a lot of things.
Mm.
And you know, even if some of this stuff is not technically historically accurate, especially like I don't know that they know what Josephine and Napoleon talked about in the bedroom, but it kind of fits with a lot of the
No, Ridley
description.
Scott was there.
Mm.
He
He did
could
his
have been.
It
He is an old guy, isn't he?
is true. Ridley, you sly dog.
No, he had already started prep on The Martian when he was doing his research for Napoleon
Mm.
in the bedroom in 18 whatever.
He just had
Simultaneously
time
working on The Last Duel and Napoleon at the same time. Two birds with one
Honestly,
stone. He was in France.
honestly, it shows what a proper grind set can bring you. You know, that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Nobody
Hashtag
knows
Ridley
that
Scott.
Sigma grind set like Declan Rocket.
Amen. Amen. Subscribe to the Me and Ridley Scott podcast where we talk about maximizing. No, sorry, I'm stopping this bit here. I apologize.
Apology accepted.
Mm.
Ben, what do you think? Do I ask the question?
No, don't do it. Don't do it.
I wasn't planning on it. I just wanted to see your reaction.
I was just thinking this is the second time that Ridley Scott has gotten Joaquin Phoenix to just play a demented ruler.
Mm.
Typecasting.
It was funny when Ridley Scott in an interview, and this was like the tag that ran. It's like, oh man, I decided to cast Joaquin because he was just so scary in Joker, and all that. And it's like Ridley, he literally won an Oscar under your direction for a comedy.
I don't do this exact same thing 23 years ago.
Yeah.
I think at a certain point, Ridley Scott is just trolling everyone.
Yes,
Like,
it
reminds me of like John Carpenter, where like he just says shit, and it's like this sounds so sarcastic. Hugh Grant's into this too. It's like I never seen that movie. Or Hugh Grant's going out there like, what was it like to to play a Oompa Loompa in Wonka? Oh, it was terrible. The motion capture. Oh my god, worst role I've ever done.
Wait, so speaking of Hugh Grant in Wonka, I ran a story in my newscast Sunday night about how Wonka was coming out this Friday, sort of a preview story. And I had sound from Hugh Grant from an interview he did with Chalamet. And the interviewer was like, did you ever think in your career that the role of being an Oompa Loompa would, come across your desk, that you would take that role, that your agent would ever send that to you? And Hugh Grant was like, well, my agents kind of know that I'm in the freak show stage of my career, so verbatim, that's what he said.
Honestly, I respect. I kind of
following
love
up that random cameo in as Benoit Blanc's partner in Glass Onion.
Yeah.
But remember when we did Operation Fortune earlier this year? He was
Yeah.
fantastic in that. He was so much fun.
He's also great in The Gentleman.
Him
Oh,
and Guy
love The
Ritchie,
Gentleman.
like for some reason,
The Gentleman's a better, like Operation Fortune's kind of fun, but The Gentleman's a better movie.
100%.
He's also good.
Yes.
He's also good in The Man from U.N.C.L.E. as well.
Well, he's good in every. Look, he's a good actor.
Talking about Guy Ritchie, who has a better track record, Guy Ritchie and Hugh Grant, or Ridley Scott and Joaquin Phoenix? What's the better track record?
They have 2 movies each. I
Right,
probably
sure.
went to Ridley, considering Gladiator is Gladiator.
Yeah.
Oh, I
That's
do
pretty
love
fair.
The Gentleman, Operation Fortune. Those are the only 2 that Hugh Grant's been in.
But he was in Man from U.N.C.L.E. as well. That was Guy Ritchie.
Oh, that's right. That is a Guy Ritchie film. I always know these films like this and Aladdin. It's like Guy Ritchie.
I need to rewatch The Gentleman because I've only seen it once, and I need to just I need to watch more Guy Ritchie movies, I think is the bottom line.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, he doesn't have like a ton. He's got like 8, 10 or something. Uh,
I mean, he did both the Sherlock Holmes movies. He did The
Knows I need
Covenant.
to see
and he's at like 12.
Man from Uncle and Wrath
He
of
does.
Man. I think they're gonna be two of my next few movies.
Nice.
I
They're
like
also
Rat-
The
Oh, pretty
Covenant,
good.
George.
Both pretty good. I liked both a fair amount. Just like I liked Napoleon, you know.
Declan liked it. That's all that matters.
Thank you.
So
Right.
you guys can check out Napoleon in movie theaters. It's planned for a little while longer. There will be a streaming date to be announced for when it releases as the 2 hour and 38-minute version that you see in theaters on Apple TV. There will be a 4 hour director's cut from Ridley Scott at some point, probably next year, maybe the year after. Not sure yet. Hasn't been announced. I don't know why I'm advertising it. But anyway, see Napoleon. Let us know your thoughts. We'll be back next week. Declan is hosting to talk about one of his favorite holiday classics of all time because it has one scene apparently
Holdovers.
that takes place. Can we do the holdovers again? Is that an option?
No, there you go.
'Cause I love that movie. All right, we'll see you next week. Have a good night, everyone.
So yeah.